You've probably been called smart your whole life. The one who figures things out fast. The one people go to for answers. But no one really sees what's happening inside your head. Because while everyone admires how your mind works, they don't see how hard it is to live with it. The constant thinking, the analyzing, the way your brain just doesn't stop. And here's the part nobody tells you. Sometimes the higher your intelligence, the harder it becomes to feel at peace. Imagine this. You're sitting with people you care about. Everyone's laughing, but your mind isn't there. You're noticing the pauses in conversation, the slight changes in tone, the things people don't say. You're reading between every line. And suddenly, you feel alone. Not because you don't understand them, but because you understand them too much. This is where it starts to get heavy, because your mind doesn't just solve problems, it creates them. A small comment turns into a deep analysis. A simple decision turns into 10 possible outcomes. A quiet moment turns into a flood of thoughts. And the worst part? You're aware of it, but you can't just switch it off. Pause for a second. When was the last time your mind was actually quiet? Not distracted, not entertained, just calm. Here's what most people don't realize. Highly intelligent people don't just think more, they feel the weight of their thoughts more. Because when you see patterns others miss, you also see problems others ignore. When you understand people deeply, you also see their contradictions, their masks, their inconsistencies. And slowly, the world starts to feel a little disconnected. Then comes something even more frustrating, overthinking every decision. Because when you can see every possible outcome, choosing one feels risky. You're not just picking a path, you're mentally living through everything that could go wrong. So you hesitate, you wait, you tell yourself, I just need a bit more clarity. But clarity never fully comes, and life keeps moving. And relationships, that's another quiet struggle. At first, people are drawn to your depth, but over time, it gets harder to feel understood. Conversations feel surface level. You start holding parts of yourself back, not because you want to, but because explaining your mind feels exhausting. So even when you're surrounded by people, there's a part of you that feels alone. Pause again. Have you ever felt like no matter how much you explain yourself, people only understand a simpler version of you? Then there's perfectionism. Your mind can imagine the ideal version of everything, who you could be, what your life could look like. And reality, it never quite matches. So you push harder, you expect more, and even when you achieve something, it doesn't feel like enough, because in your head, it could have been better. Now here's the truth that changes everything. The problem isn't your intelligence, it's that your mind is always on, but no one ever taught you how to step out of it. Because right now, every thought feels important, like it needs your attention, but it doesn't. Not every thought deserves your energy, and learning that changes everything. So what do you actually do? First, you stop treating every thought like a problem to solve. Sometimes it's just noise. Ask yourself one simple question. Is this useful right now? If it's not, let it pass. At first, it will feel wrong, like you're ignoring something important. But you're not. You're choosing peace over constant analysis. Second, you bring yourself back to reality because your mind lives in possibilities, not in the present. So you anchor yourself, your breath, your surroundings, what's actually in front of you. Not everything is happening in your head, and your brain needs to remember that. Third, you stop waiting for perfect clarity before acting. Because here's the truth, you will never think your way into certainty. Your mind will always find another angle, another risk, another what if. So instead of waiting, you move anyway, with incomplete answers. Because action gives you real feedback, thinking doesn't. Fourth, You learn to feel, not just understand. Instead of asking, why do I feel this? Ask, what am I feeling right now? And just sit with it. No analysis, no fixing. Because when you don't process emotions, they turn into overthinking. And finally, you let go of perfection, not your potential, just the idea that everything has to be right before you move. Because your mind will always show you a better version. Always. But real progress comes from doing, not imagining. Here's the shift. You don't need to think less. You need to choose when thinking actually matters. Because your mind is powerful. But if it runs all the time, it stops being a strength and starts becoming noise. So what do you do with it? You train it like you would train anything valuable. You use it when it helps and you put it down when it doesn't. Because peace doesn't come from having a simple mind. It comes from having control over a complex one. And the moment you realize that, everything starts to feel a little lighter, not because your mind changed, but because you finally stopped letting it control you.